So from soda to smart money to snacks, this is the common thread of the winning papers you will hear this morning. With that, I am delighted to introduce the first set of presenters this morning, and that is Venu Gorti, who is the co-founder and solution development lead at Cogitaas, and Kamal Sen, who is the CEO of Cogitaas. So please join me in welcoming them to the stage.
Hello, friends. Yesterday, we heard about research and analytics. How does it answer so what and now what? And we've again and again been hearing, does it answer the questions of the C-suite? I think we bring you an example from Pepsico India, which goes quite far in both these directions. It answers a lot of so what and now what, and it is definitely for the C-suite. The topic is pricing, and that's like at the heart of business. Oh my God, pricing, it's like center of business. Why? Because marketing thinks it belongs to them, finance thinks it belongs to them, sales thinks it belongs to them. But what happens is that pricing is the heart of business. Everybody wants to own it, but in India we talk of elephants. Somebody looks at the trunk of the elephant and thinks it's a rope. Somebody looks at the legs of the elephant, thinks it's a pillar. Somebody looks at the back of the elephant and thinks it's a wall. Everybody has their own view on what pricing should be within the same organization. Yeah. Now,
I need to engage the important functional and emotional needs of my consumers with my brand. My pricing and brand positioning should be well aligned.
What the consumer is willing and able to pay for the product should cover costs with a sustainable margin. If costs rise and keep rising for several years, we have to find ways and means to address this issue.
Pricing, distribution, and availability are central to meeting targets. It is tough to continue charging premium and build distribution in a competitive marketplace, especially versus store or trade brands.
I wish to invest in building superior brands. Markets are very competitive. Do my brands have enough equity for sustained competitive advantage?
These are typically questions in any organization, and these are very everyday questions. But we call this equation with several unknowns. It needs very granular analysis, and if you're going to solve it through some data, that data needs deep diagnostic, prescriptive power, very good predictive power, and what's the point of predictions unless you can confirm it later? So you have to go through that process too. Pepsi has a very strong CMI department in terms of data, in terms of churning out a lot of insights from that data. And even in this area, they were using some techniques. So you could use market mix modeling, conjoint analysis, price elasticity models. Problem was, none of them were comprehensive enough for everybody, like we showed. Everybody had their own angles. So how do you bring it all together so that the organization can actually use it and do something with it? Yeah. So Cogitaas, our company, we partnered with Pepsi, and we started looking for a solution. And that solution we found in Professor Sexton's work, where there was a very comprehensive and a very usable paradigm that brought brand equity perspectives from the marketing point as well as the margin perspective from the finance point altogether. And to use this, we use two metrics. One is the MCV, which is maximized consumer value. It's a notional measure, but it's all about brand equity. What's your maximum brand equity perception? Another measure we came up with was CSF, consumer surplus. How much do you leave on the table for the consumer over and above the price? Now, with a wee bit of maths, my colleague will take you through an example. So, Venu.
The interesting thing about these measurements is it uses data that is sitting in your organizations. We look at sales data, your brand imagery data, and market data, which is essentially your competition. Using these three, we can measure the perceived value of your brands and the perceived value of all other brands in the market, yeah, who are the competitors for your brand. And perceived value, as you know, is essentially the net total of all emotional and functional benefits that your brand is offering to the consumer. Let me show you how this is represented. So you have a brand, and there is a certain price that you are charging today. Over the last several years of advertising, you have built a certain perceived value for your brand. The gap between the two is what is the consumer surplus factor. This is that part of your equity, it's that part of the value that you're leaving on the table for the consumer. Mathematically, we have seen that if your perceived value is twice of the price, that means the CSF is 2, which is the ratio of perceived value and price, you are in the position where you are maximizing the attraction for your brand, and that's the place where you are maximizing the potential from your brand. Yeah. So let me give you an example of how this is used in a decision-making process in a company. Yeah. Let's imagine that we have to take a decision on a large, profitable brand which has historically been leading price increases in the category. You are now sitting in a situation and you have to take a call on whether you should take up the price again or no. To build up to this, let's just rewind to what happened 2 years ago. You did the same analysis. At that time, let's assume that the price of your brand was $2. Let's assume that this measurement told you that the perceived value was $3.2, which means the consumer surplus factor is 1.6, the ratio between the two. I just told you that unless your CSF is 2, you are in a position where the consumer is dissatisfied, likely to leave you. So what is the implication? Yeah, your marketing strategy is clear. You need to focus on attributes that will build up the perceived value. As far as the pricing is concerned, there is no pricing power at this point. Yeah. So the learning now, now let's just take forward 1 year. Yeah. And let's see what happened then, right? You have taken up the prices. You probably had some compulsions. Price has gone up to $2.2. Perceived value is 3.5 because you're focused on the right attributes, which again, by the way, the model tells you which are the specific brand traits that will drive the perceived value. However, your consumer surplus factor is still 1.6. So what you need to do now is have a much bolder focus on the rate at which the perceived value is being stretched compared to how you are taking up the prices. So now, if we come to the situation today, your brand is at $2.2, which is the same price that was last year. But because you're focused on perceived value and the right attributes, you have a consumer surplus factor, which is 2, that is that magical number. Yeah. Now you're in a situation where your attributes are working for you, the perceived value has gone up, your brand is back in the green zone, and there is some pricing power that's now coming to the brand. This work was done for all the brands in the Pepsi snacks and foods portfolio. The work was done at brand level, at a variant level, at a region, SKU, channel, you name it. It was done at all levels of granularity. But it doesn't end here. Yeah, this is where it actually starts. Yeah. This work has been embedded into their planning process now. Yeah. So decision makers can now see through a dashboard what the implication of a pricing change is going to be. Yeah. Usually you look at pricing and you look at its effect on short-term revenues and short-term market share, but this also tells you what happens to your CSF, which is your long-term equity. Yeah. Are you going to leave enough on the table for the consumer or no? More importantly, what it does is it allows all different stakeholders to come together and argue on whether they should take a price up or no, but they are fully aware of the implications on the short-term health and on the long-term health of the business and of the brands. We are working with the consumer insights team continuously, and we have developed a flagging system where every few months, we basically analyze the data again, and then we see what are the interventions that the business needs to do in order to make sure that this health of the brand and the business is maintained and it is growing continuously. These models have been found to have a very high level of forecasting accuracy, upwards of 90%.
So now Pepsi is extending this work to a larger number of brands. The important thing is there is alignment across all levels of management on this system. It answers the C-suite questions, and it's become integral part of their planning process, part of how they validate their planning, part of how we confirm our predictions for them. And going forward, this is becoming their main way in which they decide on so many of their pricing decisions. Thank you.